Okay. What do you got by way of topics? You were telling me a story. Tell the story about the South Korean fighter. So here, I'll tell you it as I understand it. You tell me where I'm off. But a gentleman fought in South Korea. He had agreed to take a dive. The bookies, I mean, this was lined up, the mafia, whatever you want to call it. He gets in the ring and somewhere changed his mind. Wins the fight, and now he's on the run. And he went to the police for protection, and he told them what happened. Hey, I agreed to throw this fight, and I didn't. And now these guys are after me. Is this a fighter that we should know? Is this a known guy, or is this somebody they just threw in?
I do not know. I didn't. Let's talk about this then. If we're going to talk about it, let's open it up, because that's a slippery slope, man. That's a slippery slope. You remember when the UFC first went to Vegas, you could only bet a couple fights, and you could only put so much money on it.
500.
Yeah, you could bet it over and over, but the lines were going to change. I mean, $1,000 would literally change the line. So if you wanted to bet 10 times, you had to do it 20 different times. But as you went, it would change the line. Man, you've got guys now making 2 and 2 with $2,000. That's not enough money to train on. Even if it's 6 and 6, okay, to train for 3 months properly, it's hard to work, man. Now it's hard to work. You got there's probably been more. If that guy was going to fix a fight, now you might want to go back and say, I wonder who else fixed a fight. That's where I'm at as a fan, as a gambler. That's where my head goes. I don't know. I just got a text from Brew about that, so I don't know any more than that, who it was, this, that, and the other. But the fighter that said he would fix a fight is going to jail if he's in the United States of America.
Yeah, where they're sanctioned? Yeah, you're right.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It's a crime.
I decided not to. You know, it's like I picked up a contract to murder somebody, but you know what? I decided I don't want to murder him. You're going to the clink. You're going to Crossbar County.
Well, yeah, okay, I'll get off the legal argument there. But yes, you are right. In a sanctioned event, that would be a crime. If they were taking action and gambling on it legally in a legalized state, you are absolutely right. So, yeah, I don't know who that was. I don't even know of a promotion that's going on in South Korea, so I'm a little behind on that. How big it was, how small it was, if it had any kind of TV rights. I don't know the name of it. It wasn't anyone that we would know of that are happening in the Asian countries, by example, ONE FC or Ryzen. It was nothing like that. And I also don't know who the competitor was. But not a great spot. I mean, he's on the run. If he's dealing with bookies and he made a deal, he's not in a wonderful spot. And I don't know exactly how the police are supposed to protect him from that. I mean, what is he going to some kind of witness protection? I don't exactly know what they do. You might want to go back to the book and go,
your career's over.
How much did I cost you? What exactly did I cost you here? What's the buyout on this? I double-crossed you on my word, but I don't know, man. It's a spot, but it's an interesting story. Have you ever seen a worked fight just absolutely where you watch it? Man, that was a work. There's speculation on some, but have you seen one that was a thrown fight?
No, not like that. I mean, we were talking about it this morning. Is fighters, fighters throw fights all the time. They just don't know until they get in the middle of the fight that they're gonna clink it.
Yeah, but that's not a thrown fight. That's a guy quitting. I mean, that's what the whole sport's about. You're trying to get the other guy to quit. Yeah. And if you can't do that, then eventually a time limit will go and we'll turn to the judges. But that's what the whole sport's about. What I'm talking about is where guys. I've only seen one that was without question. It was the thrown fight, and it was Dan Severn versus Shannon Rich. And how much they worked it out ahead of time, I don't know. But when I watched it, I wasn't even positive. I watched it and go, well, this is a really weird fight. This is really goofy. But if these guys wanted to tell me they just had a goofy night, I guess I would listen. Where it came that it was so obvious was in the cover-up. And we talk about it on this show, Joel, but the cover-up is always worse than the crime. And Dan Severn won that contest. And Dan Severn came out to try to say it wasn't a worked fight. Now, if it wasn't, he would have told the truth and said, man, that was weird. And I thought some of the stuff Shannon was doing out there was a little bit goofy, but I finally got him down and was able to submit him. It was the way Dan tried to cover it by complimenting Shannon Rich. Well, this guy's a magnificent fighter and magnificent talent, and it was an honor to be in there with him. And he was going on and on. It's like, Dan, I see what you're doing. you don't want Shannon, the only other guy that's in on the gag, to turn on you, so you're saying nice things about him to keep favor and hope that this blows over. It's but you're just not smarter than us. You're just not. We see that all the time, whether it's fighters or wrestlers or anybody that's playing some kind of a character where they try to outsmart us. And it's like, you're not smarter. We've talked about that with Roman Reigns and the way that they book him. You're not smarter than us. You're not going to get over on us, but you are going to irritate us. So just shoot. Just always come out and tell it the way it is.
Do you think the DC's buddy who gave him the lift got a new car?
No, I don't think that DC knew that lift was going to happen. I think that guy went rogue at the same time that DC went rogue. And then you have a debate, too, of cheating. Was he cheating? Because, I mean, how philosophical do you want to get on this? If it's not called, then it didn't happen. It's one of those situations we talked about.
Yeah, but both of them
fight. We can't have it both ways. We can't say one's cheating, but that they let it go and then go, well, Mousasi cheated or Weidman did. You just can't. Well, ultimately, it comes down to whatever it's called.
I disagree with you. And I agree with you as well. DC cheated, but DC made weight, and it's over. Okay. And it's over.
I think that's important what you're saying, though, that does become the final word, that it's over. The gavel has come down.
Yeah, it's over.
Well, but it's relevant, though, Joel, because a protest was filed by AJ's camp after the fact, and that's going on right now. Now, I believe that the commission's not even going to hear it. I believe it's going to be thrown out, but let's say that they do hear it. Well, guys, how much time do you have? This was brought up. This was on video. The fight happened. The fight took place. You could say it happened at the 11th hour if you want to, but the bottom line was it was the 11th hour. It wasn't the 12th. It didn't happen, and there was time, and it's done. It's absolutely done. I think it needs to be ruled that way. I think that needs to be thrown out.
Not only that, people need to realize, hey, man, we talked about this yesterday. You moved Earth to get sanctioned in New York. Okay, the Big Apple. It's cool to go into New York. You're fighting at Madison Square Garden. You can talk all the yang in the world about it. That's a historic spot, bro. You don't get it. I do. You're fighting at MSG, brother. You're fighting where the best of the best in the world that has ever done it is fighting, and that's in New York City. These managers, that's a money grab. That's a money grab. They're trying to get in DC's pocket. 20%. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Here's your problem, dummies. How much are you going to make in your career being in New York, being managers of fighters that are fighting in New York? Think about that, man. Think about that. Do what's right sometimes for the sport, not what's right for you.
Do what's right every time for the sport. Sport trumps everything. The industry trumps everything. Any fight, any athlete. Now, if there is a reasonable argument here, and there is, I don't protest that. All I'm saying is there has to be also a reasonable time. And to come in after the fact, after the fight happened, what is it exactly that you're protesting? You want 20% of his money. Well, if you get 20% of his money, you're saying that it's not a title fight. You're saying he missed weight. If he missed weight, it's not a title fight. So in the event that your athlete would have won, are you going to attempt to seek that 20% and give the belt back? Because if you get a ruling that he missed weight, it is now not a title fight. In addition to your pay-per-view clause with the UFC, you're paid on having a title fight. So how far do you want to run this? How far is it you want to rewind the clock that has already moved forward? That's my question. And now at this point, you start to get philosophical, and that could seem like I'm going to a weird dimension, but this is what happens when you're bringing up legal arguments. When you're bringing up legal arguments, all of these things come into play. The bottom line is this. On the cheating, I'm speaking to that word specifically. Is it cheating or is it not?
Oh, okay.
They're saying it's not. I mean, I'm just saying, if you go in front of a jury for absolutely anything and that jury finds you innocent, if they say you didn't, then that is official. Then you did not do it. Now, sadly, it can go the other way too, where maybe you are innocent, but if they say you're not, then you're not. It does go both ways, and that's the problem with authority and people judging other people. What I am bringing up is that had happened. It was at the 11th hour, that's true, but it was not at the 12th. There was time, and the fight moved on, and the title was on the line. And that was contested, and nobody complained about that. So if you're trying to run it back now, how many things do you want to run back? You want 20% of his purse, but you only got that by having a title fight. So before we send you your pay-per-view check, that was for a title fight specifically, do you really want to void that out?
Have you ever kinked the scale?
And Joel, I'll ask you this too. Let me ask you this. Imaginary world, but imagine this for a second. If AJ had won, and he's the champion of the world, do they attempt to disqualify that match from happening by proving that Daniel didn't make weight, which therefore would make it a 3-round fight and therefore would not make it for the strap? Would they be willing
Who's they?
His management,
No.
whoever is filing this, his camp, are they willing to go both sides of this?
No, absolutely not.
But do you see where it gets complex? I kind of went to a weird dimension, but do you see where I'm going? I mean, all of that has to be brought to the table.
It's not a weird dimension. It's a money grab, and it's from his managers. And it leaves a bad taste in my mouth because what we just talked about is AJ went out on his own terms, very professional-like. He'd even made reference to, yeah, that was a cool trick. I've never seen it before. Right after it happened.
Now, in fairness, don't we have to admit to everybody, we don't know that this is his managers. It does appear that way, but we don't actually know that. It could be AJ went to his manager and said, hey, I think I was wronged here, and I want you to go through the appropriate steps. And now all of a sudden they're just acting in the best interest of their client. That could be what's happening. We don't actually know. Well, we don't actually know.
We don't know
who's
much.
at it here.
That's what we do.
What I'm saying is, in my
scale?
opinion, the rule came in. Which was it's fair play. That was the ruling.
And I agree.
Yeah, and it's similar to the Weidman fight. I mean, you can go back and forth on that, but how long do you have? I mean, how long do we have to go back and forth, and who should get the win, and who should get the
scale,
and who should move forward in the rankings, and what do you actually want to do with that fight? I mean, how long do you have? In my opinion, you don't have very long. They tore the cage down, they put it on the truck, and we moved to a different town. That's kind of your opportunity. If you remember, with Matt Lindland's situation, which we talked about on a show a couple of weeks ago with Keith Saraki in 2000, that was very debated on whether Matt could do what he did. Now, he went to higher levels of authority, all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they ruled he could, but wrestling disagreed, and they said, well, wait a second. There's a protest time period where we can't go back and redo it. The weigh-ins are done. The mats rolled up. We're into a different town. Joel, you'll remember to give another wrestling reference, what had happened with Ian Miller. Remember when Ian Miller got jobbed against the Cornell kid? Now, everybody admitted it.
Wasn't that real Buto?
Yeah. Both sides, everybody agreed that Ian Miller got jobbed. The Cornell side agreed. The Kent State, NCAA, everybody agreed. However, there was a window of which a protest could be filed. It was very limited, which meant at Matt's side. When you leave Matt's side and head to the back, it's done. They didn't catch it until they got to the back. Now, that had only represented about 20 minutes. It was only about 20 minutes. But the NCAA ruled, no, our clause is Matt's side. You guys left Matt's side. This is a close. We agree. Had you brought this up, we would have ruled in your favor, but the tournament moves on. So there is a relevance to that. There has to be a statute of limitation on everything. I don't know what it is on the AJ DC thing. I'm just saying, if you're going to make that argument for AJ's side, how much are you actually arguing? Do you want to do away with the fact that it was for a title? Do you know that could affect your back end clause? Are you willing to accept all? Have you thought about this? Do you really want to undo what's already been done? That's the question.
That was beautiful.